Hey folks, Paul here. So today I've come out just to film a quick video on some bow drill. It's probably been about 5-6 months since I last did a bow drill, and it's one of those skills that you kind of, once you've learnt it, it's quite hard to forget it, but it can be difficult getting the conditioning back in. And I'm blessed that every so often someone will order a bow drill kit from me, and that basically means I have to come out and practice. So it's almost like forced practice in a way, and I'm very lucky that way, because I know it can be a struggle sometimes to motivate yourself to go out and practice the skills, especially ones you don't use very often. Because for me, although bow drill is an excellent skill, for fire lighting I much prefer, like pyrites and Amadou or hand drill, just because they have less difficult components to make. But that's personal preference, and again, it's part of the reason why I don't really practice bow drill as much as I should. That being said, I've made a kit, and it consists of a spruce board and a willow spindle, and I find that as a combination to be really good. It's the combination I use most frequently actually, and although it's probably not the best combination out there, the reason I like to use it is because there are materials that are readily available, and I'm a big proponent of using the materials that you have to hand. So although you can get very easy embers with certain woods, those woods are usually, a bit more exotic, if you like. So for instance, lime. Lime makes really good baseboards for bow drill. I have absolutely none of it nearby. And if I spend all my time practicing on lime, which is incredibly easy to use, and then I have to come away to the real world and use something like spruce or pine or something along those lines, it's going to be a step up in difficulty, and that might not be a difficulty I'm prepared for, and therefore using sort of real world materials that are abundant, might make it more difficult, might make it less exciting, but it makes it more manageable and more realistic. You can go just about anywhere in the country and find the materials I'm using here, whereas certain materials are obviously kind of located very sporadically. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Another little tip I thought I would share while I'm here, for beginners. I'm making these kits and I sell them, and usually they go to beginners, people that are trying to just get the feel for bow drill before going out and butchering a tree to make their own kits. And I think that's quite a sensible way of doing things. And I figured I would share this with you, and I'm sure it's something you've probably seen before. It's something I've posted about before, but that is this. As you can see, I'm using paracord. I use paracord on my my bow drill kits for when I'm making them for people, just because it's easy to use, it's readily available, and delving into natural cordage for bow drill is pretty top tier stuff. So having something like paracord works really well. But the trick here I want to show you is the way that I've drilled a hole through the bow, and the string comes through. Now, when I was a beginner, I don't mind telling you even now, I've been doing this for a wee while, I still suck at knots. I absolutely suck at knots. And so when I was doing bow drill, I used to get really frustrated because my knots would never hold. I would be, about 70% way through the process, and then one of my knots would slip and I'd have to start all over again. Whereas this process, you can drill a hole through, tie one overhand knot or a granny knot in the end, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going to slacken any, because it can't come through, it can't loosen up, and you can really adjust it by tying more or less knots. And it adds a lot of longevity to the bow as well, because the bow isn't having to have bits carved out of it. It's just got a hole through it, a round hole, and you're not pulling on any thin parts of wood. So if you're starting out on your bow drill, your bow drill adventures, by all means, just drill a hole through and stick the cord through. Don't worry about knots. I still to this day, like I say, don't really know much about knots. It's something I really need to touch up on. But it's important to use your kind of ingenuity to find workarounds, and this is one of my favourites, I have to admit. So yeah, I mean that's it's just one of those little skills or little tricks that make life a little bit easier. I wish I'd known about it when I was beginning. It would have saved a lot of bow drill kits from getting thrown across the woods. But all this being said, I've come out here today just to test this kit. Whenever I make a kit, I always test it before sending it out to its new owner, just to make sure that it works. as you can see, I've tried it already, just burnt it in and cut the notch and made a wee ember. But it's been a long time since I've come out and blown something to flame, and I guess that's part due to the lockdown, and in part due to the fact that, you know, it's just the weather and stuff like that. You know, all these things we face. You know, so I figured I'd come out, give it the full beans, make an ember, and blow it to flame, just for the sake of getting back on the horse, if you like. For my bird's nest, I've got just a bundle of grass I collected on the way here. It's a little bit damp because we've got a bit of overcast, but it should be fine. And in there I have some rosebay willow herb seed heads. They're a bit past it now, but they still work fine. And that should blow to flame fairly easily. So that's probably enough of me nattering on. Let's see if we can make an ember. I meant to mention that my bearing block is a stone. I got this from Seb Damon. He made it for me, and it's the best bearing block I've ever owned. As long as you don't put it down and forget about it. But I like to use stone or antler for my bearing blocks. I really have moved away from wanting to use wood. I find that just to be a real pain. So again, a bit of advice to beginners would be just to move into using something like stone or wood, not wood, sorry, stone, bone, antler, something along those lines, or seashells. Wood, I find, just adds another layer of complexity that you can quite easily remove with a stone, you know. So just another little tidbit there. Prepare yourself for some squeaks. Just go nice and easy at first. Just getting everything warmed up. And then when you start to see smoke, probably time to give it a bit more beans. But you should still be able to kind of hold a conversation fairly comfortably at this rate. That should about do it, I reckon. Lots of really nice fine black dust. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see it from over there, but we do have an ember. I'm just going to take some of this dust and sit it on top just to make sure that it's got lots of fuel. There you go, you can see a decent sized ember there just forming. Just going to leave it a couple of minutes just to form. It'll start to burn up and coagulate and stick together, and when it's stuck together at that point we can move it much more easily. At this point, if I were to try and tip this into my bird's nest, there's a good chance that it would just fall to pieces and, you know, potentially fall right through the bird's nest. So it's always worth just taking your time with these things. You know, if you only had one shot at this, you'd want to make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance. And quite often the worst thing anyone can do when it comes to fire lighting is rush. And I I've learned that the hard way many a times. So it's coming together nicely. Get my bird's nest. I'm just going to tip this into the centre. Always make sure your bird's nest is clear. You know, the bit you want to sit it on. Quite often you'll have like bits of grass sticking out everywhere, and if you accidentally tip the ember onto one of those bits of grass, it can send it off in a different direction and end up in the wrong bit of the pile. I've done that a few times as well. So in it goes, just glide it gently with a finger. Get all this extra dust. Any extra dust you have on your board, knock it all in. It's all extra fuel. And again, I'm just going to let it sit for a minute. I'm not going to rush it. And now I'm going to pick it up. What I'm going to do is kind of fold it over. I'm sure a lot of you guys will have seen this before. I'm just going to fold it over a little bit and then start to blow on it, and it should hopefully go to flame. Again, just nice and gently at first. There's no rush. Slowly building. And there we go. Oh. Make sure you're sitting out of the smoke's view, and then set it down. And then at this point, of course, you would start putting your sticks and stuff on. But I'm only out here to practice, so I'm not really too concerned about that. But it's nice, you know, it's nice to be able to come out and practice a skill that you don't use very often, just in the interest of making sure that it stays fresh in your mind. You know, a lot of the skills that we practice are actually quite perishable, and if you don't practice them, you know, quite a lot of the time you'll actually lose them. I'm just going to stomp this out before it causes a big scar on the ground. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Just a sort of quick video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've certainly enjoyed coming out again and, you know, and kind of breaking out a skill that I don't use very often. It's always a nice thing to do, especially when it goes well. But if it doesn't go well, then it gives you an opportunity to learn and to kind of progress even more. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again soon.